Good morning, Wabash. Giving today's chapel talk is Dr. Horton. Professor Horton has been a member of the psychology department at Wabash since 2001. He received his PhD in social psychology in the same year from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and his BA in psychology from the University of Richmond in 1995. He and his wife, Naomi, live in Crawfordsville with their 3 children, Marshall, Whitman, and Mesa. Giving his talk titled Happy Enough and Getting Better, Dr. Horton.
Hey, thanks, folks. And thanks to the Sphinx Club for the invitation to talk today, and thanks for all of you who came out. As you just heard, my wife and I are the parents of 3 children, 2 biological sons, Marshall and Whitman, who are 9 and 7 years old, and Mesa, who's a little girl, who's 5, and who we adopted from Ethiopia in 2010. And to tell you the truth, I don't feel all that qualified to talk to you about much today. Maybe narcissism, but I don't think you want to hear about that. The national study data for sure, but I did my last chapel talk about that actually. But I do feel qualified to talk about my kids and the somewhat surprising impact that they've had on me and my life. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And though I know most of you aren't parents, though some of you in the back are, I'll try to sprinkle in a few broader reflections about my kids and the guide that they've been for my life, so that hopefully you can see some relevance to what you do and how you proceed through your own life. So, my kids. Now, some of you have actually met my kids, so this will be sort of old news for you. But, so my kids, they are fairly typical kids overall, as candid as they are cute, and inclined to flip quickly from playing together happily at one moment and fighting fairly vigorously with one another in the next. They are in general pretty fond of us, me and my wife Naomi, but they certainly have their moments of frustration when they would certainly like to upgrade to the Bobby 2.0 version, the nicer, more lenient, somewhat richer version of me. But whatever they think of me at a given time, in my mind, the most important and the most rewarding thing that I do in life is to parent those 3. And the love that I have for them is nearly boundless. It's voracious and it's vulnerable, it's unwavering and it's insatiable. And it's a love that transcends the reality of behavior, of appearance, of accomplishments, a love for which not enough kisses seem to exist. And that might be all there was to the story if life were lived in the abstract. And this would be the shortest chapel talk in history. But life isn't lived, of course, in the abstract, but in moments, countless moments of actual behavior by and real interactions between flawed actors. And for sure, many of the moments of parenting are endearing ones, the kind that we post about on Facebook, like Easter egg hunts on Easter Sunday with cute little hats and happy expressions, family baseball games in the front yard. But parenting also comes with other moments that we don't post about, and in fact, sometimes we'd rather forget. And it's the presence and frequency of those moments as a parent that have led me to identify ever more closely with Rudyard Kipling's famous 1895 poem, If, a poem you might know. In it, Kipling writes, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise." Now, Kipling claims that he wrote this poem in honor of a raid by British soldiers in South Africa, but to me, I'm pretty sure he was a parent. And to be true, parenting has, for me, included many moments of fewer smiles and less mutual adoration, moments that have made me understand social psychologist Daniel Gilbert's recent quip that if human memory were worth anything, folks would never have more than one child. And in fact, if I'm completely honest, and this is probably a good platform for that, I think it's safe to say that I am in general less happy now than I have been at other times of my life. And my confidence in this claim comes from two sources. To start, my reflections, my memories of the recent me and the past me suggest that I experience and express more frustration, more dejection, and generally more sadness now than I have maybe ever, and certainly in the last few years. You see, my fraternity brothers, my roommates, my significant others of the past simply did not have the power or, quite frankly, the creative methods of creating frustration in me in the way that my kids do. And really, until the last couple of years, I never even had a daddy voice, right? That loud, immediate, and often unexpected moment of utter command that I have to unleash on my kids somewhat too often. And so, though reflective evidence is certainly fallible, my reflections suggest a somewhat less jovial Bobby than used to exist in the past. And those reflections are actually consistent with national assessments of the attitudes and happiness of parents and non-parents. Assessments that suggest that in general, parents are less happy than their non-parent peers, with the dip in happiness increasing in depth for each additional child you add to the mix. And we have 3 of those boogers. So it turns out that parents only get back to their non-parent level of happiness after the last kid has left the house. So that's right, guys, your parents say they miss you, and they do on some level, but in the words of Daniel Gilbert, the only known symptom for empty nest syndrome is increased smiling. So I'm not as happy as I once was, and probably won't be for many years, if the truth be known. But you know, that's okay. Being a parent is a great experience, one that's filled with great moments, not just despite of, but maybe because of that emotional reality. You see, it's not obvious to me that being a little less happy is necessarily a bad thing. It's only a problem if one expects or values increased happiness. And I must admit that I've come to actively resist what I see as the seemingly ever more prevalent notion that how I feel should necessarily be a marker for how I'm doing, as if feeling as happy now as before is somehow evidence for whether or not my life is somehow just as good or better than it was before. Now, somewhat more broadly, as if the books that I read, the people that I talk to, the experiences I have are only valuable if they make me happy, if they make me feel good, as if life is all about accumulating fun and more smiles, with the one who dies with the most declared the winner. Well, quite frankly, that strikes me as a little odd and sort of not logical. And it strikes me as the kind of idea that liberally educated folks might want to unpack. Now, it might not seem like it's worth unpacking, except that it's just so out there. When there are 30,000 books about happiness on Amazon.com, most of them of the self-help variety, when toothbrushes start including buttons that play popular songs like I Got a Feeling, like Black Eyed Peas thing, that's the best I can do. When toothbrushes include buttons that include these songs to encourage kids to brush, and when religious organizations have to start employing Christian rock bands and hip-hop bands to entertain parishioners just to put butts in the seat, it seems like things have gotten a little out of whack. Indeed, the message these days seems to be that everything should be fun, even toothbrushing, of all things. And if it's not, why would you want to do it? And that notion rubs me wrong. So this talk is at least partially my attempt to express the greatness and value of moments that, quite frankly, don't make me all that happy. And for the record, you need not pity me. Not that you ever actually would. And even if you think happiness is all that important. You see, I think of happiness as a lot like money. Once you have enough of it, and in money's case, that's about $75,000 a year in this country, more of it really doesn't make a bit of difference. Doesn't make things better, and it could actually make things worse. So though I may not be as happy as I once was, what is important is that I'm happy enough. Happy enough to smile often, happy enough to have a dance party every now and then with my kids, complete with an electric slide or a Bobby Brown shuffle. How many people know what the Bobby Brown shuffle is? Yeah, you don't, forget it. With Ludacris and Carly Rae Jepsen blaring from the computer, and happy enough to keep doing the things that I do not because they make me happy. And after all, there have to be better ways of judging the quality of my moments, the quality of my life, than by how much fun I'm having, right? In his poem, The Psalms of Life, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow gives us a guide to other ways to judge our life. He writes, "Not enjoyment and not sorrow are our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us farther than today." For Longfellow, forget about how you feel. Be better, get better. Now, I like that thought, right? And so I'm going to share with you 2 moments with my kids, great moments that speak to how they have helped me pursue Longfellow's charge for progress. So, great moment number 1, a moment I call sniper fire. When my older son Marshall was born, I didn't have much experience with babies. I'd never changed a diaper, never rocked a baby to sleep, and really had little clue what to do to keep a kid alive. Now, I'd had a dog, and I knew that you took a dog for a walk a couple of times a day, and you fed it a little bit, and so I figured that some semblance of that pattern must work for kids. And it turns out that I wasn't half wrong. That's a rough approximation of what's needed, but there is a critical difference between dogs and kids, at least one. Kids come with diapers, at least in our culture. So this story is actually about a diaper change, just what you wanted to hear about this morning, I'm sure. So when Marshall was just a couple of weeks old, I went to change his diaper with utter confidence, a confidence that was steeled by 12 diapers a day for the past week. So I slowly peeled back the diaper, and Marshall promptly started to pee all over me. Strong pee, lots of it, hitting me right in the right shoulder. So I did what any self-respecting person would do. I absolutely hit the deck flat on my stomach, effectively out of the way of the dangerous excrement that was being spewed forth above me. Now, I had no plan, you understand, about how to stop the urine stream. I just knew that I wanted to get out of the way, and I was. Now, fortunately, about that time, my wife was strolling by the nursery. And her attention was drawn to the unsanitary events that were unfolding in that room. To which she promptly came bolting in the room, somewhat like Flash Gordon, and with a super ninja swipe of diapers and wipes, managed to hurdle me, cover the pee, and save the carpet from further contamination. Now that is a great moment to be a parent. So, what is so great about getting peed on and saved by a superhero spouse? Well, when I was in college, I think it's pretty safe to say that I was a little too impressed with myself. So much so that my college roommate, partly as a joke, probably partly not, wrote narcissist on a poster above my bed. Now I know that's a little ironic because now I study narcissism. My roommate Hayes Shemp, he clearly knew it all along. Anyway, Hayes may have been joking, but the label probably wasn't very far off. You see, I needed some humility. Now, fortunately, there have been lots of sources of humility in my life since my college years. Pretty much any math, physics, or chemistry colloquium I go to at Wabash provides a healthy dose of it. But nothing is as humbling as parenting. Nothing else in my life has made me feel so lost, so confused, and quite frankly, as useless as has parenting. And for me, that has actually been a good thing. It has made me, I think, more willing to reach out to others, my wife in particular, for advice, for help, something that I and other men maybe don't do as much as we should. And it's actually made me a more relaxed parent. somewhat more broadly, it's only after realizing and admitting how little I understand that I've come to realize how much there is to know, and have opened up to others as my teachers. And only once I realized in how many ways I could be wrong, and it was a lot, that I could forgive myself and stop being so surprised when things didn't go very well, and that I could start working on being a little less wrong one moment at a time. So for me, having humility thrust at me somewhat literally by a son that consumed and then dispelled a bit too much breast milk that day, and by my wife whose ninja childcare moves should be the stuff of legend, was the start of a path to becoming a better person. And I wonder if more folks couldn't use a similar dose of humility. With Time magazine proclaiming the reader the person of the year, with every possible contraption able to be personalized in every conceivable way, and even internet browsers like Firefox marketing themselves as the browser that puts you first, it's little wonder that narcissism scores are actually on the rise in this culture, and there's little doubt that a few more of us could stand to get peed on every now and then. Now, for me, such unrequested humility was just one step in an ongoing process of progress. Which leads me to great parenting moment number 2, an unforgiving minute at 7:20 a.m. Now, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I take our 3 kids to school. Now, our goal is to leave the house by 7:25 a.m. so we can get Marshall to Nicholson, Whitman to Hose, and Mesa to Patty's Learning Center by 8 o'clock in the morning. That means that at approximately 7:20 a.m. every morning, 5 Hortons, the 3 kids, my wife, and I, converge upon the garage door in hopes of moving the 10 critical feet from the entryway, where socks and shoes live, to the minivan. And yes, we have a minivan, and it's very sexy. Anyway, on most mornings, those 10 feet may as well be 10 miles, judging by the difficulty we have in traversing that cherished path. Because you see, at 7:20 a.m., as the 5 of us converge on that door, so do 5 different sets of pathologies that unfortunately do not just live in isolation, but that ooze into one another and emerge with a catalytic strength that threatens to dismember the family unit at its very core. So you see, it's about at this time that my son decides that his pants are too loose or too tight, too long or too short. Something is wrong with his pants. Now, it wouldn't be any fun, of course, if he decided this reality 15 minutes previously, when he was actually putting his pants on. No, the drama must wait for the critical 7:20 hour, and often involves him jumping up and down, trying to convince me and his mother that his pants are likely to fall to his ankles at any moment if even the mildest of breezes should blow his way, revealing his bottom to the 2nd and 3rd graders throughout Nicholson Elementary. This, my friends, would be a problem. Now, the fact that his pants have no chance of falling down, even if he tugs somewhat firmly on them, does not seem to dissuade him from exclaiming to us the peril and the vulnerability of this situation. Now, at roughly the same time, my other son is starting to get frustrated about his shoelaces. You see, Whitman is very serious about his sports. And if his shoes are not tied tightly enough, he is convinced he will not be as fast, as nimble, that he will not be able to leap tall buildings in a single bound like he can if he has the appropriate tension in his shoes. You see, at that age, it really is all about the shoes. And of course, he can't tie the shoes to that appropriate level of tension. And he is none too shy in expressing his displeasure at the existing tension and his intense need for parental assistance with this project. Now remember, of course, that in the background, Marshall is currently losing his brain about his pants. Now, as all of this is going on, and I am potentially tying and retying Whit's shoes so they get tight enough for him to achieve his optimal level of speed and agility, little Mesa is likely figuring out some way of getting the ever so desired parental attention that is at such a premium in this moment. She may put her shoes on the wrong feet and then fall over pitifully into a heap, claiming she just can't figure out why this happened. Or she may just decide that she can't get her shoes on by herself. The fact that nearly all of her shoes are slip-on, demanding only mild upward or backward force to achieve the intended goal, does not faze her from claiming ignorance as to just how this mechanism works. After all, in these moments of pants and shoelace crises, she wants in on the fun. And she figures that her shoes are her foot in the door. Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. Anyway. So you got Marshall jumping up and down, Whit whining about the tension in his shoes, and Mesa falling flat on her face because she put her shoes on the wrong feet. Now, add to this recipe for chaos my own obsession with being on time, and the stress that I feel when I get pulled in different directions, and my wife's insistence that kids simply must wear a coat if it is or will be colder than 40 degrees, and their natural resistance to wearing a coat anytime the temperature is above 15 degrees, and you have quite a moment to be a parent. So without a doubt, 7:20 a.m. is almost invariably the most stressful and difficult moment of my day. It's a moment that challenges me in ways others simply don't. It's an unforgiving moment that pits my own emotional reactions, frustration, and tension against the broader parenting goal of getting past myself and to the nurturance of children, to helping them navigate their own reactions and their situations. And within that struggle, 7:20 a.m. does two critical things for me. To start, 7:20 a.m. keeps it real. Now, do y'all know what keeps it real means? My wife was convinced you wouldn't. But anyway, that is, it shows me who I really am. Now, I certainly want to be an effective parent, and I want to think of myself that way. But what gives me the right to make that claim? Indeed, what is it that provides the evidence that I am an effective parent? Where is the reality that undergirds the perception? It's easy for me to be a loving parent when my kids are happy, when they're loving me and things are running smoothly. It's not so easy to be that parent at 7:20 a.m. When stress is high, they're distressed, and their immediate feelings about me are somewhat south of loving. And if I can't be that parent in those hardest moments, then I'm not the parent I want to be, that I've often thought that I was. For me, my own difficult moments, both with my kids and at other times, have focused me on an inescapable reality. I am what I do, particularly in those difficult moments, and regardless of what I believe to be true. Now, as clear as this sentiment is to me, and I would think probably to you, objective reality's grip on our impressions seems to be becoming more and more tenuous. As an example, a new analysis of the American Freshman Survey suggests that college freshmen in this country think more highly of their writing and academic ability than ever before, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Except that objective measures suggest that they are poorer writers and they study fewer hours than many generations before them. In short, people's beliefs about themselves seem to be less mediated by reality than they once were. And not unlike happiness discussion before, these beliefs seem to be more about what we want to be true, of what makes us feel good about ourselves, rather than about what actually is. For me, the difficult moments of parenting, when Mesa's falling on her face, if you will, have been a small, if incomplete, remedy for such a disconnect between reality and belief. Now, admittedly, bringing reality and belief in concert, I think, is a pretty good goal. But if the reality is pretty unflattering, that is, if I just lose my top every morning at 7:20 a.m. and thus realize that I'm basically a crappy parent, it's not really a cause for celebration. Longfellow certainly would not be impressed. Now, fortunately, engaging with those difficult moments, though, trying over and over to be in those moments who you want to be, can actually bring you closer to that desired reality. In fact, psychologists, none too more distinguished, have suggested that your ability to get yourself to do things you don't want to do, to override your natural impulses, is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And thus, if you can get yourself now to write that first draft of the paper, if you can look carefully and critically for the value in John Donne's poetry or the Crito, if you can roll yourself out of bed at 7:55 to show up for my 8 a.m. stats class, it'll be easier next time. And maybe even more importantly, so will your other attempts to override your natural immediate concerns in the future. That is, pushing yourself to be a better student can make you a better friend. Working to be a better partner can make you a better athlete. You see, self-regulatory energy doesn't seem to discriminate. So you get better by working harder than you thought you could, and at times that you don't want to. Now that's a compelling idea, right? That's something Longfellow could really get behind. But of course, and I'm guessing you're thinking this, it's not all that novel, right? You've all heard it before, and you all know at some level that the best things in life are worth working for. Heck, it's a cliche. And that the best education in life won't be easy, but will be worth it. Anybody heard that before? Yeah. But it seems to me that we often do less than we can to put this wisdom into practice. To start, we seem to avoid difficulty wherever we can. We look for any and every way to make our lives easier. iPhones, microwaves, GPSs. The reality, though, is that none of these things make our lives better, and none of them make us happier. Take the global positioning system. Certainly saves time and effort of writing down directions and keeps some of us from getting lost occasionally. But it also tends to lead people off of cliffs to their demise. Now, we reserve the Darwin Awards for them, but whatever. And even more interestingly, new evidence suggests that chronic use of the GPS system can actually lead to atrophy of the part of the brain involved in spatial navigation, the hippocampus. And honestly, I'm not sure at what point there was ever a crisis of people getting lost, like as if there are a bunch of people wandering around aimlessly looking for where they were supposed to go, that like the GPS was supposed to fix or whatever. So we say we know that difficult moments are good for us, but our pursuit of an easier life, an ever easier life, a pursuit that often leads us astray, belies that knowledge. Indeed, we seem to run from difficulty instead of embracing it as the developmental opportunity that it is. And this is especially true, I think, when these moments are unexpected and unchosen. Heck, I do lots of things, right, by choice to make my life harder. I try to run a little further, a little faster each week. I take the stairs instead of the elevator and eat things that aren't all that appetizing. When you're 40, you have to do those kinds of things. And all these things are hard for me, and they're all things that I think are going to make me better in some way. But such controlled and scheduled difficulty really isn't so much the issue. It's the unexpected or unchosen moments of chaos and tantrum that provide a particularly unforgiving and unequaled breed of challenge and opportunity. Now, unfortunately, for me, with such moments like the 7:20 a.m. debacle, I have a lot more success in seeing their worth after the moment is past. And so a critical challenge for me is to be aware of and embrace the value, the diagnostic nature of that moment as it is unfolding, so that I can be better in the moment, so that I can find the love, compassion, and nurturance in that sea of insanity that is 720, of shoelaces, loose pants, and purposely misrobed shoes, and thus move myself closer to the reality that I want to be true. In terms of who I am and who I want to be, you see, 7:20 a.m. is probably the most important moment of my day. And it was for a long time the most difficult in which to see and harness the value. Now for you, of course, the moment looked different, but the qualities really are the same. Impenetrable problem sets at 3 a.m., a demotion from the first string athletic squad, the phone call from your partner saying he or she wants to move on, or even a surprisingly profound impact of the neon cactus on your fatigue level as you lay in bed trying to decide whether to will yourself to that class that starts in 10 minutes. They might not look like it, but these are some of your critical moments, the ones that can make you who you want to be, or that can pass by under the weight of what feels good and easy in the moment. It is in those moments that you can be and become the kind of athlete, the kind of student, the kind of person that you say you are or that you hope to one day be. Yes, I think Longfellow had it right, that not enjoyment or sorrow matters all that much. Being better than you were is the right goal. And seeing and engaging with the moments that can make that happen may be our biggest challenge. In my case, my kids have provided me with these unforgiving minutes, with these great and difficult moments in which I can become not just a better parent, but a better person. And they've given me the motivation to embrace and work within those moments as best I can. A motivation that comes from getting peed on, but also an acknowledgement that I am not yet where I want to be. As your next few days, weeks, and months unfold, as exams and internships and jobs and parents and romantic partners stare you in the face, you will no doubt be met with unexpected moments of challenge and opportunity, with forks in your road that pit an easier path against a more difficult one. And I wonder if you might do well in those moments to worry less about what makes you happy and a bit more about how each moment defines you and where you can go from there. If you do, you might find your own unforgiving minutes. And to use Kipling one more time, if you can fill that unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, you might in fact find that you're less happy than you were before. But maybe more importantly, that you're happy enough and getting better. Thank you very much.
All right, just a few brief announcements. TGIF is going to be at Lambda Chi this Friday. Time Flies will also be performing in Chadwick Court. Saturday, track is at Bellarmine. Baseball has a doubleheader at Worcester. Please rise and sing Old Wabash.
From this